90.3 FM. Welcome on into the Wednesday edition of Helping Seniors of Brevard with Joe Steckler. Joe is not with us in studio today. I believe Kerry Fink, he'll be calling in a little bit later on.
Yeah, that's going to be great. It'll be like the gang will all be here. Joe is home from rehab. He's been doing well. He's been signing lots of letters because he's mailing out to everybody to remind them about the Helping Seniors car raffle. So we've got that and all kinds of exciting things going on with Helping Seniors that we're going to be talking about today. So on behalf of our entire team, Rick Broderick, who's our executive director, Kim Bernard, our education specialist, Joe Steckler, our president and founder. It's great to be here, and we have one of the greatest friends of Helping Seniors ever in the building with us. It's Barb McIntyre with Reverse Mortgage Funding. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
So good to have you back on the radio, and we really have a full studio as well because we also have, as our special guest today, Taylor Runte with the Law Office of Amy B. Van Fossen. How are you today?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
You know, I have to, Amy is an excellent, long-time elder attorney. We have done so much work together with Amy over the years. But I was reading through your biography the way it's stated on amybvanfossen.com, and I am so impressed that we are sitting here with somebody really, really smart. It says here that you graduated your high school right here. You're a Florida native, and it says you graduated as valedictorian, and then when you went to law school, you graduated magna cum laude. So we're going to get some good things to hear from you today, I'm sure.
Thank you very much. I hope to pass along some information to help our seniors in the county.
Absolutely. In fact, the topic that we're going to talk with you today about is actually frustrations in estate planning. And, you know, as not an expert in this, I always, you know, the image of estate planning always conjures up, you know, somebody really incredibly wealthy and they have all these things to deal with. And one of the things that you noted in the notes we're going to talk about is really estate planning is something that really applies to everybody.
Absolutely. It applies to everyone. And that is a common misconception is that people think, oh, I don't have a lot of money or a lot of property, so I don't need estate planning documents. And it's quite the opposite. Everyone needs estate planning documents.
Yeah, and we're going to get quite deeply into that. We're going to do a quick update about the COVID. Now, since we were last on the radio all together last week, here we are. There are actually 5 of us in the broadcast booth, and now everybody, three out of 5, you guys have all had second COVID shots and report all as well, right?
Absolutely. I had my second yesterday, and I'm feeling just great.
John Harper?
And I had my second one last week and absolutely no side effects whatsoever.
Hey,
Jim
I
had
got
his yesterday.
Yeah, I got mine yesterday. It was great, easy,
Yeah,
really easy, fast.
So the rest of us in the room are looking forward to as soon as we can, I guess, because we're so ready, I think all of us, to get back to kind of a bit more of a normal lifestyle, right?
As I've said before, I've never looked more forward to receiving a shot than this one.
Seems like
So
a good
true.
idea.
So true.
So while we're on the subject of COVID updates, I think, Jim, you said you have a quick update for us?
Yeah, the governor had a news conference this morning, and he kind of gave us an update all around the state as to what's happening with the numbers of vaccines, et cetera. So we're going to let this kind of run for a bit, and this is what he said this morning.
Want to provide an update on this week's vaccine shipments. It's not a great day here in Florida weather-wise, but it's a heck of a lot worse in a lot of parts of the country. And so vaccine shipments are being delayed. Now, we did get the vast majority of our Pfizer shipment this week. We've received about 136,000 doses. We've got about 9,000 doses that are left. We think we're going to get those tonight or tomorrow morning. So that's not that disruptive. The Moderna, though, that entire shipment is still yet to come. So we think it's going to come hopefully by Thursday or Friday. Normally we would have all the Moderna by Tuesday or Wednesday of each week. So, and what's happened is you see all the storms, you see a lot of the ice. I think some of this stuff's just in Memphis or the places where they ship from. So it's a combination of the weather, the ice, and then obviously the different logistics that result from that. So if you have an appointment like at a Publix for Thursday and they have to delay you, that's almost assuredly why. So just have patience on it. There's nothing we can do with the weather in other states. We are going to get the Moderna, but it is not here when it normally would be here.
All right. And so I guess as we're talking about, different parts of the country have really been affected by this, but at least the vaccines are making their way in step by step. And I got to believe by the time we get down to like April or May, I thought I heard something that they were saying by March, they were thinking things may actually start to be fairly well generally available. And it's really good and comforting to the rest of us to hear that Barb McIntyre, John Harper, and Jim Votro, and I know Joe has had his shots too, and everybody has said not a problem.
It's comforting to us as well.
That's right.
No, I am sure. Well, so with kind of like that, I really would like to get into the heart of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about some things. We have a new date, by the way, for the Helping Seniors Travel Club Cruise. We're going to talk about that in the second half of the show. We're also going to give you an update on the Helping Seniors car raffle. But I really do want to kind of jump in right away while we have the privilege of having Taylor Runte from the law office of Amy Van Fossen here, because we're going to talk about frustrations in estate planning. And Tyler, one of the things I remember, we had the privilege of doing a show with one of your colleagues, Greg Schwendeman, about guardianship. And the thing that was so eye-opening to me is we all think as the general public, oh, we don't need a guardian. It's not something that's necessary for us. But he was explaining that so often people will show up in the law office and say, well, here's what happened. My mom just had a stroke or something was going on. And all of a sudden they can't sign papers. They can't do anything. And so they're like, well, how do we work this out? And Greg said, oftentimes he has to sit and explain to somebody, if you just set this up before, we would have options. Right now, we don't have options.
Yes. So one of the frustrations for us in estate planning is just people waiting till it's too late or waiting too long to get their documents in place. We do the best we can, but if we are in such a time crunch that we physically don't have the time to produce the documents that are needed, there's not much we can do. Estate planning is one of those things that it's easy to put off because it doesn't seem like it's a priority, because people think, oh, I'll do that next week or the next week. And time just kind of goes by, and you don't know what life is going to throw your way, especially with COVID and everything that all of us have been going through. We just don't know what the future holds. So it's so important to get in and get these documents done. Another thing is people often think of estate planning as trusts and wills and kind of the after death documents, but it's not just that. It's the documents that would be needed while you're living, but incapacitated, like you're talking about that Greg had mentioned. So who's going to pay your bills if you were, put in a coma, or if you were in a car accident and physically couldn't sign checks? Who's gonna do that for you? That's why powers of attorney are so important, and healthcare surrogates as well. Who's going to make your healthcare decisions if you can't?
Yeah, and I think, Bob McIntyre, you have a kind of a unique perspective on all this because you're really like a leading expert on reverse mortgages. People literally call you from all around the country because they'll find you, they'll see one of the shows that you and Joe did together where you're explaining. You have a good way of explaining everything, but you find out a lot of times when you sit down with people too that this is maybe an area that they've got to take a look at.
Absolutely, and it's so important. One of the questions I ask in a conversation with somebody that's inquiring about reverse mortgages, whether we do a loan or not, is do they have these papers in place? Because I've over 16 years of working with seniors, I have come across many occasions, too many, where one of the two homeowners did have a catastrophic stroke and the wife or the husband didn't have a power of attorney. And what had to happen was a guardianship had to be established, which is extremely expensive, all for the lack of having a durable power of attorney. So that one document alone, and then, of course, a medical directive, appointing a medical surrogate, is so critical. And like Tyler said, it's not just about when you die. It's far more important when you're still living. So I do come across that, and it's a real, a very sad occasion if that happens. So those documents are very important.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think is so important, these are some misconceptions I think we're going to go after in today's show about all this, because this is a question that I think a lot of people say. It's like I said, we all remember like the Beverly Hillbillies title song where they're talking about swimming pools and movie stars, and that's kind of where most of us think, oh, trust, and these all sound like high dollar items. And I guess one of the questions, Tyler, that you get a lot is, well, look, I really don't have anything. Why would I need to deal with these kind of documents anyway?
Yes, we get that a lot. People say, I don't have anything. I don't need estate planning documents because I don't have anything to pass along. But even if you have, $50 in a bank account, that is a probatable asset if you do not have certain documents in place. And hey, even if it is $50, you probably want it to go to the person you want to have the $50 rather than someone that you don't intend to take it. And again, that kind of goes back to, it's not just what happens when you pass away. It's the documents that are put in place before that are necessary while you're living, the power of attorney, the living will healthcare surrogate. But we tell everyone that no matter your situation, no matter how old you are, everyone needs estate planning documents. Oftentimes, there are younger families that we talk to that, I have years and years to think about this. I'll do it later on in life. But what if something happened to you? What about your children?
Right.
If they're minors, and who's going to take care of them? How are the funds going to get to them? Those sort of things need to be thought about.
That was actually going to be sort of like my next Mythbuster kind of question. Like, okay, for those of us that are not old enough yet to get a COVID shot, do we need to think about this yet? And clearly the answer is yes, for just the reasons that you're stating. And I guess that's another misconception that's out there, kind of on a widespread basis, right?
Absolutely, yes. People think, it's not a priority for younger people because they think I just have time to do this. A lot of people get busy and they kind of think, I don't really know who I want to be in charge of my children. Or I don't know who I want to be in charge of my estate when I'm gone. I need more time to think about it. But we tell people, go ahead and get something in place. These documents can always be changed. They could be changed as many times as you want during your life. They're all amendable, revocable. And you just want something. Have something in writing should something happen to you. Don't make it hard on the loved ones that are, either caring for you or caring for who you leave behind. Have this stuff in place so it makes their life a little bit easier as they're going through a grieving process or stressful time as well.
That's actually another point. Remember early on with all this COVID stuff, they said, well, you need to wear a mask. And they were telling us originally, and I'm not sure 100% about it, but they said, the reason you wear the mask is not necessarily just because it protects you. It protects those that you care about who may be around you. And kind of what I hear you saying is this is a reason that you want to take the time to get these documents is because you might care about the people who are around you.
Yes. You care about your loved ones. They're going through a tough time, whether you are still living, but in, going through medical procedures or if you have passed away, they are struggling, and you're making it easier on them.
Yeah, it's the kindest thing you can do for your family to have already arranged and set up the legal aspects of how things will pass to them and through the person that's responsible for managing things. That's a gift. The worst thing in the world is to lose someone you love and then have to figure out how to probate assets and the time it takes and additional costs, when having done that paperwork early on just makes it a very clear-cut step-by-step process. So it's really a gift when the person does that for their family.
Well, and I was thinking about that. Joe Steckler, who's our president and founder, he was the guy that originally got the whole Brevard Alzheimer's Foundation going. He got the Joe's Clubs established and all that. And now helping seniors we're now in our 10th year of serving the county with our county information helpline. Mm-hmm. And one of the things he's always been strongly advocating for is we have to create an aging plan. And so the best way I like to describe it is that, when we were in high school, they were always asking us, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Do you need to go to college? Do you need to do this? What kind of a job are you going to have? How, what are you going to do here? And then when we get into adulthood, then they start with questions like, well, are you going to send your kids to college? Or are you going to retire? How are you going to do that? What are you going to do? How are you going to plan for that? And then Joe's point is, when we get to retirement age, do we have an aging plan? Do we have an idea? Just like, we here in Florida, we understand hurricanes. So they tell us we got a plan for hurricanes. Go buy your batteries, have your evacuation plan, all the things you do for that. But do we have an aging plan for those contingencies? And I think a lot of times what happens is so many of us just wind up on a catastrophe that just happened, and then we don't know where to go. And I think, Tyler, what you're talking about is that at any point, it makes sense for you to get that plan together.
Yes, get the plan together. It can always be changed. That's what everyone, needs to understand, is that just get something in place, because having something is better than nothing. Everything can be changed, and we just don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what life is going to throw our way. And we all just need to make sure that we have our affairs in order as much as possible starting today.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of fits in with the same thinking about use of reverse mortgages. I'm a huge advocate for putting a reverse mortgage in place as soon as you're age eligible, not because you need the funds then, but because of the potential of what that reverse mortgage will do for you as you age, so that when you're much older, you have a resource. And this is if you're planning to stay at home, you have an idea that you would like to age in place. You've established a way to have the resources you need to continue on in retirement that way. So again, have a plan, and the plan should include your estate planning, and it should include having a concept of where you see yourself as you age. Do you have enough money? What things can be put in place to help you? So it's like Joe said, it's just about the next phase of your life that you're planning for.
Yeah, and it's a lot more comfortable to know when something, you run up on a situation, you say, well, we've already kind of thought a way through about how we're going to work with that. And I remember that's something you and Joe, Barb, have talked about a lot as it pertains to reverse mortgages. You said that there's a really great advantage to getting set up early. And I think you said you can begin, in some cases, you could begin as early as 60, but I think you said mostly at 62, right?
That's right.
And so when you do set up early, you explained that there's actually the value of what you're able to access over time continues to grow.
Right. If you utilize a line of credit on the property that you own, over the years, the mortgage itself is designed to give you continuing growth in the access of your own equity. So every month you see that you now have access to a little more of your equity, and it compounds. And so, you go from, I had a client call me yesterday, and we spoke about, he was getting letters about refinancing, and we spoke about, does it make any sense? And he has not utilized any of his line of credit. He has a very low loan balance. And it turned out, when I looked back at what his house was worth $190,000 when he did the mortgage in 2012. Now it's worth $350,000. Mm-hmm. His line of credit was at the time $112,000 or $13,000 in a line of credit, and now it's $187,000 worth of equity that he can tap into. The interest rates were really comparable to back in 12 to what it is today. And so I said, you know what? There's no reason to refinance. Mm-hmm. It's only going to generate commission for a loan originator, but it's really, I don't see it as your best interest. So point being, that was example one, prime reason that having that in place years ago, he envisioned it for his wife. So if he died first, she would have access to those funds. Now he's outlived her. But he says there's going to be a time in the next few years that I could possibly start drawing on it. And I'm like, perfect use. That's what it was for. So,
and that's really the thing that we're talking about. What Joe is always encouraging folks to do is to really try to get ahead of that aging curve by coming up with some sort of a plan. And I guess, Tyler, as we're talking with you and we're hearing about things, the average person, we don't have a lot of sophistication. I mean, some people do, but for the average person, just like we're talking about, you said that a lot of people, walk around under a misguided, well, I don't have enough, it doesn't make sense for me. And then you're pointing out that there are reasons that we really need to do this. And particularly some of the things that you guys, as knowledgeable attorneys, just some of the concepts are a little bit foreign to us. We barely understand home ownership ourselves, and then people start talking about trusts and all these kind of things. How do you sit down with somebody and help maybe demystify or at least guide them through some of all that?
So it's definitely a step-by-step process. We give as much information as we possibly can. We're educating people. The first step is just explaining what documents are necessary and helpful to have. And then ultimately we go through each one of them and explain what each one means, because everyone has a specific purpose. And we give the clients as much time as possible to ask questions, review the documents that are in front of them to make sure they fully understand and are comfortable with what they're signing. And even oftentimes we revise and we get the documents exactly how each individual wants them. All the documents are different, so it isn't easy for a layperson to understand all of the legalese in some of them, as people say. But we get them to that point. We educate and we help them understand what they are signing.
I would also think that not every document is necessarily appropriate for every client. So figuring out exactly what they do need and what's appropriate in their case, would require sitting down and really having a conversation about what they're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. And we get to know our clients well. I mean, this isn't a quick little relationship. I mean, we learn about them, they learn about us, and we get through. I'd like to think that our clients are very pleased with our work once it's done, and we form really great relationships. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say that's actually been a hallmark of what Amy has always done with the law office. You guys are always out there with seminars and educational opportunities. Even through COVID, I know she made a lot of resources available on your website and things like that, so people could get, maybe a basic familiarity. Because in all the conversations, I remember one of the topics I wanted to ask you about, because I remember we actually did a Helping Seniors television program with her that was titled, "Should I Put My Kids on the Bank Account or Should I Put My Kids on the House Title?" And of course, it's like a rhetorical, the answer is no. but she really gave like a lot of reasons that the average person wouldn't think about,
Right. Yes. And that's what we're there for. We're some of the things that are out there that people, believe might not be the best legal action to take. And that's why we're there. We give advice. Ultimately, it's the client's decision what they want to do, but we try to provide as much information as possible so they can come to a conclusion that they're comfortable with.
Yeah, so we're about to take a mid-show break, but I do want to make sure, even before we get there, that if you got a pencil and a paper handy, I want to give you the web address and also a phone number. So if somebody's hearing these conversations, they could either get in touch with Taylor Runte at Amy B. Van Fossen's office. So let's start there. What is the website that people would want to go for that?
So www.amybvanfossen.com. And our telephone number is 321-345-5945. And we do elder law. So it's not just estate planning. We do probate, VA, Medicaid planning, guardianship, case management. We really help in all areas of elder law.
Oh, that's great. You guys are amazing. And also for Barb McIntyre, if you got questions about reverse mortgages, there's really only one great fountain of knowledge here to go to. Barb, how do we get in touch with you?
Well, you can call me anytime at 321-259-7880. That's 321-259-7880.
All right, John Harper, we have a lot on the second half of the show. We're going to continue the conversation about estate planning, and we're going to get into the car raffle. We're going to talk about the cruise, and hopefully we'll have Joe Steckler with us, too.
Here on 90.3 FM. It's Helping Seniors of Brevard with Joe Steckler, heard every Wednesday, 12 noon to 1 o'clock. And right now, let's get back to more of the show. And right now, here's Kerry Fink.
Thank you, John Harper. Yeah, we're having a great visit today with our longtime friend who has been part of the Helping Seniors organization, helping us really advocate for seniors and just taking on the mission of helping seniors. This is our 10th year, and Barb McIntyre, you have been here for really a long stretch of the way. Barb is probably the leading expert on reverse mortgages. I remember the very first time you sat down with Joe Steckler, and Joe being the retired Navy captain who really questions everything because he wants to know that whatever we're talking about is going to be the right thing for a senior and doesn't want to send a senior down a path. And I remember at first he was kind of a little bit skeptical about the whole thing, but you really won him over with the facts and helped us all understand, because we'd all heard maybe some bad press about reverse mortgages at some time.
Absolutely. I remember it. Every time I would see Joe for the first couple visits with him, it was like starting over. In the time I hadn't seen him, his skepticism started to creep back. But anyway, he had some skepticism, and then I'd win him over again. And so, yeah, it's been a long relationship. Helping Seniors is such a great organization, and all the people that are and businesses that are sponsors are really committed to bringing really great information to Brevard seniors, and I'm really proud to be one of them.
Yeah, that's actually what Joe has always set out as the reason to be for helping seniors, is we have to get information in people's hands that helps them develop this aging plan, like we were talking about in the first part of the show. And that's the other reason why I'm so happy to be able to say our special guest in the studio today is actually somebody that works with another very long-time friend of helping seniors. Her name is Taylor Runte. She's an attorney at law with the law office of Amy B. Van Fossen, who is one of the premier elder law firms in the area. And Tyler, we've been talking about frustrations in estate planning. This has really been eye-opening for, somebody that maybe doesn't have all of the, maybe the technical understanding of all these things. But we've covered a number of topics already about how important this is, even if you don't think you have a big estate.
Yes, it is. It is absolutely important for everyone. There are multiple different documents that are necessary to have in place, some while you're living, some for after you've gone. But please call our office and let us help you out. Let us help you get a plan in place. We don't just do estate planning. We do VA and Medicaid. Maybe that is part of your picture. What kind of funds do you have now and what will be needed for later? How can we preserve those? How can we make sure Medicaid is on the table if that is your picture? Case management, if you don't have family or any loved ones in the area and you need help with your daily activities, or you see that in your future that you might need help and you just don't have that right person to do so, we can help it in that area as well. So we do it all.
Yeah, no doubt. And we're gonna come back a little bit more on this topic because I got a couple of questions I want to ask you. But I am hearing that we have none other than our illustrious president and founder, Joe Steckler, on the phone with us, John Harper.
Joe should be there. Hi, Joe.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Joe, how are you today?
I'm fine. I'm listening to you all talk about the estate plan. I can think of a word I'd also like to use with that, and it's called control. Mm-hmm. And there's not a person that I know that likes to lose control of a situation. Mm-hmm. And you cited an example of $50 in the checking account. And let's say it this way: let's say you have an emergency in the family, and you've got a couple $100 in your checking account, but a family member comes in to help, and they want to buy food to feed the other family members coming in, and they don't have any money in their checking account to pay for it. And all they'd have to do is access your checking account, but if they don't have a power of attorney, they can't do it.
Right.
So, estate plans, you don't have to have thousands and thousands of dollars in order to have an estate plan. You can put a good estate plan in place for a very minimal cost, several $100s. You can do it, and you can get more elaborate, but you can get enough of the documents for a few $100s to cover you, and it takes a heck of a lot of worry off. And that's the only other point I would want to make. But there was something I think that our listeners need to know, is that there's been a lot said in the Florida Today newspaper about these CARES dollars and the over $100 million that the county got to help with small businesses, and I want to assure that our listeners that the commissioners are using that money. Some of the commissioners made a decision that I personally wouldn't have made on how to handle the money, but others did a super good job, like Kurt Smith and John Tobiah, Mrs. Anka. They put funds in accounts that they're getting that money to the small businesses. I know that our organization had applied for a $10,000 grant because that's what we thought was the max you could get. Well, I got a call from the county at the home at night and said, you're going to get a larger amount of money than that because we simply know what you're doing. So I called Commissioner Smith in his office, and I thanked him for thinking about what small amounts of money can do to help businesses during this COVID crisis. And, we're not through it yet. And if people will continue to use those masks and safe distancing and use their heads about what they're going to do and what they're not going to do, will help solve the problem. It may take us a while. That will also impact our car drawing too, Kerry.
Yeah.
And we've got those tickets that are going into the mail now, and this is something we don't have control over everything we'd like to have control over, and people get sick and they can't meet commitments. But we got things under track now, and people have helped us in the past. I just hope and pray they'll help us in the future, because it's that for nonprofits, cash flow is extremely important. It's not that you're not wealthy organizations and you're dependent on people to help you provide help to others. But the show today is great, and Barbara, thank you for always making your comments. And I always like Amy's office because they're always able to comment on us. And I don't know, do you have Rick with you in the studio?
No, Rick is not here today, but the rest of us are here, and we're just carrying forth.
I was just going to make a comment. Maybe Rick is starting to learn about what it takes to be in a nonprofit, and it's an important thing, Kerry. I'm going to turn my radio back on and listen, but and if you have a question you want to ask me, I'll hear it on the radio, and then I'll turn my radio off and I'll call back in. But the show is great, and you just tell people what we're doing, okay?
Thank you, Joe.
Sending you well wishes,
Thank
Joe.
you very much.
Glad
Bye-bye.
you're feeling better.
Yeah, and Joe is right. He makes a point. People just assume, and I didn't know this because I came out of the commercial world too. And Joe has been in this nonprofit space for years and years and years. And he said, Kerry, he said people just assume there's all these government grants and it's just easy money, and it's really a fight when you want to keep an organization going, because it doesn't happen without the help of people who are kind enough to get involved and sponsor the work of helping seniors, which, again, you guys have been supporters of helping seniors for years. So appreciate you guys. And then, like Joe was referring, one of the most major sources of funding is now we're in our 5th year with the Helping Seniors car raffle. And I got to tell you, when COVID hit last year, we're used to taking cars out to car shows and having people come up and buy tickets on site. And then there's always the big party out at Mark Pylock's amazing American Muscle Car Museum out there on Sarno Road. It's a private museum. It's his personal collection, $70-80 million worth of cars. And the only time he opens it up is to help organizations like ours and let us use it for a fundraiser. And he's always been so generous. But we couldn't do that last year, right, with COVID. So we really are so dependent on people doing that. So I do want to take a moment and just give you the website, helpingseniors.carraffle.com, while we're here before we get back to our main topic. October 9th is going to be the grand drawing date, but the ticket sales are open now. So Saturday, October 9th, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. is the slotted time out there at the American Muscle Car Museum. And I wanted to also say we've been trying to get the Helping Seniors Travel Club cruise off the ground. We picked a great time to start a Helping Seniors Travel Club. we started this. Chris Morris, who has been a travel agent, the guy started like in 1982. So this is the amount of experience. The people who Joe assembles to help us in helping seniors are like just the best of the best. I mean, these are people who did not just start this yesterday. They have some real track record. And Chris is one of those guys. Since 1982, they are special needs certified travel agents, meaning that they know how to take care of people that might have to bring oxygen on, whatever the things. They understand. And now he jokes. He said, not only am I trained in helping seniors travel, he said, I am a senior who travels, and I want to help people have a good time. So last year he came to Joe, and Joe has always wanted to do Helping Seniors Travel Club, because one of the challenges for seniors is isolation, and especially with COVID, right? So the idea is to get a bunch of people together from Brevard County. Let's all go sailing on a cruise ship. And so we'd set this up to go. I think it was originally last October, and then COVID happened, and then it became January, and then we set a date in May. And so what Chris just informed me last week is he said, well, talking to the folks at the port, he said the cruise line's ready to go. They've got all the CDC guidelines set up. It's going to be the safest cruise ever because they're going to be so careful. But the port isn't really opening up until July. So once again, the date gets pushed. But we do have a new date now. So it's October 17th. October 17th. It's going to be the same cruise, 7-night cruise right out of Port Canaveral on the MSC Divina. And so we're going to be sailing with a lot of people from Brevard County. It's going to be great fun. And it is a fundraiser for the Helping Seniors organization as well. And so all these things play together. And we were laughing. So, well, the way it works out, you go to the car raffle big party on October 9th, and then like literally a week and a few days later, we get to go sailing. So it's going to be a good time. So you can find out information about that at helpingseniourstravelclub.com. And there's a great special early booking offer if you buy the cheapest cabin on the ship, meaning an inside. If you've ever been cruising, you know that's how they do that. You buy the inside, and Helping Seniors, if you book it the way we're talking about, you will be upgraded to a balcony.
Wow.
So for literally the lowest price on the ship, $790 per person, you will be upgraded to a balcony. And let me explain that price, because people go, oh, yeah, but then I got to pay government taxes and fees, then I got to pay insurance, then I got to pay gratuities on board, then I got to pay. No, that price, everything. Chris wants it to be clear and upfront. You pay that, you get on the ship. The only thing that you would buy extra would be if you're buying alcohol on board or a shore excursion. So it's going to be great fun. It's a fundraiser for Helping Seniors. 2 ways you can support the work of Helping Seniors. So with that in mind, Tyler, if we can jump back, because I think this is really educational. And I want to ask this because I see this on our notes, and this comes up all the time. I guess you get people who wander in and they say, oh, yeah, I had these forms done. I went down to the office supply store, and there was this thing that said I could do a will. So I filled it out. I'm all set, right?
Yes, we do. We certainly have people that come in and say that, and we just kind of shake our head and say, let us help you. Please, let us help you. You need to go to an attorney's office for this stuff. The statutes are clear. Certain language needs to be in those documents, and you want it to be right. I mean, these are your wishes, your desires, your intentions, and you want them to be legal, valid, and binding. So make sure you have an attorney's office help you out with that. And we're only seeing it more and more because of the way the world is kind of going. More and more websites doing this, LegalZoom, other non-attorneys' offices producing these documents. And you really need to go to a reputable attorney to make sure that they're accurate and legal.
And it does seem like, isn't the danger here is kind of like what we were talking about at the top of the show about somebody walks in, mom or dad is non-responsive in a way that they're in the hospital, and now the family is trying to figure out what to do. And as we talked about, another attorney in the Amy B. Van Fossen law firm, Greg Schwendeman he said, Kerry, it's tough. I have to look him in the eye and say, listen, the only thing we can do at this point is a guardianship. But I'm thinking it could be the same problem with somebody's homegrown documents. They walk in, and now when they need to use them, this is the worst time to discover you're not prepared.
It's awful, and your heart breaks for the people, because a lot of times it's the kids coming to you, and mom or dad is in a bad situation, and they think everything's orderly, everything's the way it's supposed to be. Mom and dad did this, they prepared, and we have to look at them and say, you're not, unfortunately. The documents aren't, maybe they weren't executed the right way with witnesses and notaries and such. And it is hard. It's very hard because they're already undergoing so much stress as it is, and it's just like one more blow.
Yeah, you know, and isn't that part of it too? Because if you don't have your documents in order, I've heard you talk about this, Barbara McIntyre, too, when it comes to these reverse mortgages, just like the situation you were talking about during the break, where you have an older gentleman, mother just passed away, and now trying to resolve finding all this paperwork and what all has to be done to work out that situation.
That's right. And, you know, how sad. He was crying because he just was in such distress. Been a caregiver to his mother, thought everything was okay, and she's gone now. And now what? So at least he found me, so I can kind of hold his hand and walk him through the process. But a lot of people, they don't know who to go to for and what to do next with a reverse mortgage when the borrower does pass away. And unfortunately, this woman did not make a will, so it's going to be more complicated because probate will have to be involved. Takes time, and the lender has a certain amount of time that they have to move forward with, resolving the mortgage debt. But it'll work out for him. But he felt a whole lot better after I talked to him.
Well, you know, isn't that one of the things? I think this is one of the things that Joe has really made a point that we have to do in the Helping Seniors organization is we have to get people who really understand these areas to provide help and information. So as people are making their aging plans, they're getting the right help at the right time. Like I was just reading some notes that we were talking about before the show about when you go to your own estate planning documents that you maybe said, oh, I'm just going to do this because the attorney's too expensive. And there was like at least 3 things that we had written down here. A, you could end up paying way more on the back end to fix these problems. Number 2, what you had in mind for how things were going to be distributed might not happen. And I thought this one in particular, I wanted to ask Tyler, who is our attorney, who is here with us today from Amy B. Van Fossen's law office. It says, you know, there could be things like bad deeds, property transferred improperly, homestead issues, somebody made up a legal description. I guess you guys run into all kinds of stuff like that.
We do. And, you know, you can do your own documents. I mean, that is the truth of the matter. So oftentimes people try to do their own deeds, but the deeds either have a wrong property description or a wrong legal description. Sometimes the people kind of make it up given the information that they can find online, and those are invalid transfers. So yes, you certainly end up paying more money on the back end to try to fix all these problems because really all you've done is muddy the water, and we're there to help you and hold your hand through the process, but these are problems that could have been avoided if you just took the steps in the first place.
Well, I think that's what Joe was saying, too, when we had him on the line, right, is that the process, and I think I've heard this universally. I think you say the same thing like Greg does, like I've heard Amy said, look, it's just not that expensive to do it right the first time. So don't put it off. Just go ahead and do this, and then everybody around you, including you, has peace of mind.
Absolutely. That is the key. And I think people get nervous because they feel like it's such a commitment. You know, I'm signing these papers in front of people and it's set in stone or something, and that couldn't be further from the truth. There's no reason to be nervous about it because you're only helping people. And like I said earlier, everything can be changed if you change your mind. If something happens to one of your loved ones that's on your documents and you want someone else to be put in their place, all of that can be amended and it will always look how you want it to look.
Well, and that's another point. You know, I was thinking before we actually started the show, we were all in the studio. We were talking about the age of kids, right? And so depending on where you are and what your age is, you know, there may be a point in your life that says, well, the kids aren't ready to help me when I get older, but maybe 10, 20 years down the road, now they're grown up, they can do those things. And I guess that's another reason why it makes sense. And I've also heard, is this true that when people move in, because we have so many people moving to Florida right now, that happens generally just as people retire, they want to enjoy the warmth of the sun and just the great lifestyle we have down here in Florida. But at the same time, people are moving for a lot of different reasons into Florida, and the population is just booming. So people show up and they have documents maybe they wrote in another state, and then they think they're all set, but maybe they need somebody to look over and help them make sure they're set.
They need to be looked over. We always recommend that if you bring documents from another state, have a Florida attorney review them to make sure they comply with Florida law, because things do vary from state to state. And yes, we have tons of people moving to Florida all the time. So it is best practice to have them reviewed, and we'll get you up to speed and get the documents to comply with our rules.
Yeah, I think I've heard Amy talk before in particular about the importance of that power of attorney document, that it's way more rigorous in this state than it is in some others. Is that right?
That is true. Yes. Our power of attorney, and actually Amy Van Fossen's power of attorney is a very strong document. We oftentimes say it's the most important document you can have, but you need that one. Everyone needs a power of attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I guess you run into that a lot too in the reverse mortgage side of things, Barb.
Absolutely. That's a very important document. And I believe Florida has changed it over the years to become more in-depth. So someone that has a really old Florida power of attorney probably needs to consider getting it reviewed and possibly revising it.
So that is maybe another question that's worth asking you, Tyler. So at a certain point of time, maybe you had documents done X years ago. How often do you suggest, maybe nobody's looked at them in a certain amount of time, how often do you suggest that they blow the dust off of these things and come in?
So certainly if something in your life has changed, if there's a big change, if someone has passed away that's on your documents, or if your beneficiaries, you want to look different, obviously that would need to be reviewed and changed. But every few years we recommend take them out, look at them, see if everything looks how you want it to look. People forget what they write in these sometimes. And also, yes, the power of attorney did change quite a bit some years ago, and there was a big overhaul. That doesn't happen all that often, but we look at the dates on all that and make sure that your documents are up to date. And if you don't have one, you certainly need one. But it's good to look at them every few years, make sure everything looks how you want it to look, and they can be reviewed by our office just to make sure they are up to date and everything looks right.
Yeah, and I really want to remind you, listener, as we're having this conversation today, that if you go to the Helping Seniors website at helpingseniorsof.org, helpingseniorsof.org, or maybe you like YouTube, you can find a wealth of programs cataloged on the Helping Seniors of Brevard YouTube page, and we've even actually got them out on the Facebook page as well, Helping Seniors of Brevard. But the point I was after was the fact that over the years, Joe has done so many good television programs with expert advice that will help you understand some of these questions we're talking about. So, like if you don't understand guardianship, there was a great program with Greg Schwendeman from from Amy's law office. There is a great program, for example, on like the topic we were talking about before. Well, I might need my son or daughter to take care of stuff for me, so should I just put them on the bank account? And Amy goes into, no, this is not a good idea, but here's how we can do this that still protects you. And then what we're talking about, for example, today, about the fact that we just need to get this paperwork together. And then you guys have so many resources. So before the show closes out, I want to make sure we give the phone number for your law office of Amy B. Van Fossen. Taylor Runte is our guest today. How do people get in touch with the office and maybe make an appointment or figure out what they need to do next?
Call our office at 321-345-5945. We do hold seminars on all the areas that we practice: estate planning, Medicaid, VA. You can visit our website at amybvanfossen.com. And again, we do all areas of elder law, so estate planning, probate, VA, Medicaid, guardianship, and case management, and we can help in all of those areas.
That's great. And Barbara McIntyre, let's give your phone number for reverse mortgage expertise.
Okie dokie. It's 321-259-7880. That's 321-259-7880.
And with that, I think we've achieved our allotted time. Thank you so much for coming out and joining us and listening on the radio today for Helping Seniors. We'll see you next Wednesday.